So let's talk about some managerial processes that I love. You're going to think that these are, something special and unique and different and new news. This isn't new news. This is old news. Old school, basic managerial processes, techniques, methodologies really work. The problem is managers don't learn them, and then they don't have a good way to implement them. Obviously, TouchStone is phenomenal for this because it gives the managers tools to be able to use with their employees and use for themselves to be able to manage better. I was on a technical call the other day, and someone I'd known for a long time, and she was talking about how frustrating it is trying to get one of her employees after COVID to show up to work on time and to not call in sick and to not call and say, I'm not feeling well, I'm just going to work from home today. And she was like super frustrated about it. And she said, well, I'm going to sit down with her and I'm going to say, it's not COVID anymore. You have to come in. When you don't come in, this X, Y, and Z doesn't happen. And I said, wait a minute, you don't need to say any of that. All you need to say is, this is our policy and process for attendance. It is 9 to 5 every day. If you are sick, you bring a doctor's note. So this is the policy. All you need to do is sit down with her and say, here's the policy for that. I know things have been different. I know it's been a bit loose, but it's important that we all follow our agreements. This is the agreement that you made when you started this position. And so it's now going to be enforced. So you don't have to get into the story about what happened and her issues and this or that. You just say, this is the policy. This is the process. Let's talk about that. So these managerial tools here help support that kind of dialogue, because we're going to talk about what's wrong with the process or how we need to follow the process. We're not going to talk about what's wrong with me or what's wrong with you or why this person's an issue. We're not going to talk about that. Let's discuss the processes. And through that, we'll resolve the issues that are occurring. It doesn't have to be inhuman. You just need a basis for it. Because if your managers don't have something to fall back on like this, it becomes personal. It becomes about what they want or don't want. And the employee starts to view the manager as the problem and that she doesn't like me and all that stuff comes up. So by giving the tools, you're giving this consistent managerial experience and you're allowing your managers to be more successful. So it starts with one-on-one meetings. That's this process here. If you can't have one-on-one meetings with your employees weekly, do a monthly. If you can't do a monthly, do it quarterly. At a minimum, it has to be quarterly. I haven't been told any situation where I wouldn't stay firm on that. I really think monthly is mandatory. We're not talking about big, long, complicated meetings. It's 45 minutes to an hour. I think it's even better if it's weekly. So in these weekly or whatever form you decide to take, what happens in these meetings is just a check-in with the employee. A lot of things go unsaid. A lot of things cause interruptions because if the manager is micromanaging and going around and like sending emails and writing sticky notes and making phone calls, it's like it's scattered. So anything that can wait for this meeting time, it's way better. You take the energy out of it and you wait for the meeting time and you go through it methodically. I understand that not everything can wait for a week or a month. Clearly, things that have to be addressed right away, they need to be addressed right away. But I think if your managers really scrutinize it, really think about it, they could condense a lot of what they're scattered with, this one-off conversations and the recorrecting and all that, and they can bring it into more structure by having it happen during a one-on-one meeting. So this comes from the library. There's a form, super easy, employee's name, date, items to discuss, goals achieved from last period or not, goals for next period, and anything else you want to talk about. Sometimes hey, how are you doing? How's your family? That kind of stuff goes a long way with people. And I think most of your managers care about what's going on with their employees. It's just there's not the time for it. So 45 minutes or an hour. In items to discuss, you can put processes to discuss right here from the job description. So process is to discuss with them in the next meeting. It could be, how are we going to get this documented? Or let's work on that together. Or this week, spend 2 hours working on that process, and then let's talk about it next week. It could be a problem that you want to address with the employee and say, the follow-up process has not been good. Let's sit down and discuss it. Let's look at it in TouchStone. Let's talk about how it could be better. So sometimes it's just a breezy meeting where you're just checking in. So they save that. And then every time they have one of the meetings, they're preparing for the meeting with this one-on-one meeting process. Then we have task delegation and work management, also a fabulous process. This also comes from the library inside of Guiding the Business. All of these are in Guiding the Business. So task delegation and work management, this is helping your managers to figure out how to delegate. So this goes back to what we were talking about in account administration, where it gets confused who's doing what and whether I can, well, let me say it another way. It gives the managers confidence to be able to delegate things effectively. A lot of managers find that difficult. So 2 things happen. One, they're just saying, do that, do that, do that, without any explanation. They advocate it rather than delegate it, or they're holding it. No, I can't give them that. I got to do that myself. It's hard to strike the balance. This tool, I'll call it, this managerial tool, helps strike the balance. So there's something called work delegation guidelines, which is teaching about how to decide what can be delegated and what can't. There's this action plan or this work plan called missed accountability. So it's when I delegate something to an employee in a thorough way and they don't do it that way. How do you deal with that? There's a script in here. There's something right here called the delegation exercise. This is one of my favorites. It looks really simple, right? It's 3 columns. So it's work that can be delegated right now, work that can never be delegated, and then this is work with a process. When you download it from the library, this column will be full. I think the form looks even a little better than this one does. So there's 3 categories for all the work that your managers do or that you do. There's work that can be delegated right now. So things they really just do not need to be doing, simple things. There's work that they're never going to delegate. So as the manager of admin finance, I'm always going to do the budget. I'm always going to be in charge of cash flow. I'm always going to balance reconcile the bank statement. And then there's work that can be delegated if you had a documented process for it. All of the technical work that managers are doing should be in this column here. So the documenting of the process gives them confidence to then truly delegate it. And when you delegate with effective training, it just feels so much better. It's so much easier. And it's never your fault for not, or the manager's fault for not like thoroughly giving the employee the tools they need to do it correctly. Sometimes we need to take a second look at our employees and their abilities, knowing that maybe they haven't been given the best training. Maybe we thought we did, but we really didn't explain to them in a really solid way how it's supposed to be done. We were trying to kind of make it up and get them to do it as quick as possible and made that mistake of assuming that they knew what they were doing. So taking a fresh look at their abilities and saying, how can we document all these processes to delegate them thoroughly can really help you to see your employees in a new light. So that's the delegation exercise here. These tools are also in the custom form tool. So this is the delegation exercise and the custom form tool. So you can make a list. This is probably better than that document tool. Anytime in a library process, you see a document like this one, and there's also a custom form, and there may also be an uploaded file. We're just giving you different formats for it. So ideally, you would go in and delete the one you don't want, like delete this one. And then keep the ones that you want actually used. So there's this missed accountability form. There's a delegation form. So once you've gone through the exercise, if there's a list of things in this column work or this one that you can delegate right now, then you could go to this delegation form and fill that out and actually delegate it to the employee using the form. Next, we have employee performance review. Employee performance review to me, goes hand in hand with both of these processes. And how it does is, if I'm having my one-on-one meetings all throughout the year, and we're talking about what's going well, what's not going well, I'm really delegating work to you, I'm documenting processes and then teaching you those processes, we're working on it together, and we're methodically over time really being successful with actually building something. At the end of the year, we sit down in a formal performance review and we go through it all. So this is a simple performance review process. It gives you like a step-by-step for how to create the actual forms itself. There's some response scripts in here that managers can use while they're in a review. There's a couple uploaded files if you'd rather have it in Word documents. So this is an example of what I was talking about before. These two are the same as these two. It's just different formats. Here's a actual performance review. So if you take the template and you build it for a position on the org chart, you only have to do that once. So ideally, every box on the chart would have a template, a review form for it. And what some of it is boilerplate from position to position. So like this stuff and this like description, it's down here where it gets specific for the position. All this is the job description cut and pasted into a form. So this is admin positions performance review. I would take all the processes from the admin position on the org chart and I would just cut and paste them into here. These aren't exactly admin positions, but you get the idea. So productivity reporting, track and report service hours related to client activities. Now, you know, if I clicked on that process on the job description, it would take me to the how-tos of it all, work plans, all of it. Here, I'm just saying, how is that employee doing with the processes from their job description? Then I give them a grade and I make comments. If we've been having the one-on-one meetings all throughout the year, even once a month, it's going to be a no-brainer for me to fill this out because I already know, we've already talked about productivity reporting and how well they're doing with that or how they're not doing well with it. So if I give a grade of below average, this person's going to know why, because we've already discussed it. And it's very concrete. It's not just, this is the way I feel about you this year, or I don't think you're committed, or all of these vague kind of subjective things that come out of managers' mouths sometimes. It's really tangible. It's like, this is the work you're supposed to do. This is how you've done over the year. This is what needs to be better. And it's not subjective. It's very objective, particularly if you're doing the task delegation and then also the one-on-one meetings. There's some more stuff down here, like, you know, some things that are more subjective, like attitude. If you want this kind of stuff, you can have it, you know, performance since last time. Anyway, so this gets filled out right in TouchStone if you'd like it to, or you export the job description and you put it into the template in Word and you can do it that way. So discussing everything one-on-one in concrete, clear meetings, delegating work and managing that work that you're delegating. And then it all comes together in the performance review once a year, where the manager is really sitting down and giving the employee a solid review. The reason managers hate this, the performance review, anytime somebody tells me I just dread the reviews, it's because you haven't been doing the work all through the year. There hasn't been that communication. There hasn't been those solid processes that I'm referring to. And I have to make it up. That's what they're saying. I don't know what to say. So this together handles that fear that comes at the end of the year. And then I just threw these two in here. I love key performance indicators. This is a good process to have too. You all know what that means. It's just to give the manager a tool to put their foot down. You know, we always say 3 strikes and you're out. So if I have a process in place and you didn't follow it and we discussed it and went through it and you agreed and then we did it again and then we did it again, well, then you're out. And this helps with that. It helps a manager say, you know, this is enough already. We've already given them the processes. We've had the meetings and they're just not willing. And then key performance indicators. I kind of feel like every position in a company should have these. These are just some examples of like for human resources. You can build key performance indicators for every position. You can say, what are the goals that we have for you this month? Or what are the goals that we have for you this year? And these are just some forms to build those and fill them out and have them done right in TouchStone. So this could be given to the employee, they fill it out, and the manager sees it once a quarter or once a year. Every position on the org chart can do this. Obviously, managers can do it the easiest. They're above here, so they're quantifying everything. But even like a salesperson can track their own call rates, their own number of calls in a day, demos they've done, whatever their version of this is. Even like admin positions over here. It's good for a manager to say, what are the goals that you have for yourself this year? And if the admin person says, well, I want to get more organized and I want to, if I did this, this, and this, I think things would be easier. You write all those things down, make them tangible. It's not just a feeling, and then track them. Maybe you need to put a process in place to make things more efficient. Maybe some money needs to be spent to build a better network, whatever it is. Any employee can track key indicators. And I think it's a really great way of motivating and giving the manager, again, that tool that helps them to get their employees to be following processes and achieving goals.